Hi guys, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day wherever you're watching me from. Hey, it's your favorite girl again, Fumilola from the speech. Thank you so much for clicking on this video to watch. To my returning subscriber, I warmly welcome you to this beautiful channel. Thank you so much for clicking and stopping by to watch. If you're new to this channel and you're seeing my face for the first time, my name is Fumilola, aka Fumi Speech. So if you cannot pronounce Fumilola, just pronounce Fumi Speech. I think Fumi Speech is more um, easy to pronounce. So welcome to my channel if you're new and you're seeing my face for the first time. Um, I'm a registered behavior technician by profession, and then I'm currently working under the supervision of a board certified behavior analyst, also known as BCBA. So the work of the BCBA is to supervise we, the RBTs, in order to make sure that our practices are working with the children with autism or developmental challenges are put into the right directions, and we are being scrutinized very well so that our practices and then the measures that we're using to work with these children are being monitored by this profession as the BCBA. So welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about one of the challenges the challenges faced by these children that I'm working with. So one of which is autism spectrum disorder, which is also known as ASD. So what do I mean by autism spectrum disorder? Autism spectrum disorder, which is an abbreviation for ASD, is a disorder. It's a neurodevelopmental disorder which affects the brain's function in children, that affects their communication aspects and their ability not to communicate effectively or function as a typical child should. So you might have noticed in your environment or the malls or wherever you go to that we have children. So there are categories of children that suffers these disabilities. They suffer from this disability, which is autism. So they typically, men looking at them, they're very okay. But if you don't go close to them, you wouldn't know that they have, such disabilities. So it is not written on the face, mind you. Autism is not a sickness. It's not a lifelong. It's not a sickness, to be precise, but it's just a challenge that these children faces or individuals that suffer from it faces. So it affects the part of the brain which makes their brain not to function the way a typical brain would function. So basically, you meet them in malls and then you see some of these traits in them, which I'm going to be elaborating further on in this video. So what do I mean by autism spectrum disorder? So as I said earlier on, it's a neurodevelopmental challenges that affect the parts of the brain from allowing these children to function the way they should. So in terms of social interaction, in terms of cognitive aspect, in terms of functioning like other typical child could, function, they are lacking in that aspect. So what do I mean by social interaction? So you see a child with ASD, autism spectrum disorder, having difficulty interacting with a typical child. So they tend to isolate themselves in a very isolated environment where they confine themselves to that particular environment because it suits them. So you might see a typical child moving towards a child or moving towards an adult and engaging conversation with this particular ASD child. You see that the child will not be able to reciprocate the interaction with the other child, which is functional. So that's why they tend to like isolate themselves, not because they are shy or not because they are being naughty or not because they are proud. No, it's because the environment which they find themselves, it suits them and it makes them, wanting to isolate them. So maybe they don't like crowd, and then you take them to a crowded environment. So they have an outburst at that particular time, and in order for them to avoid that particular environment, you see them being alone, or prefer to stay alone, or prefer to do things in their own way in that confined environment. So if you see those kind of kids, you don't start scolding them, or you don't start pulling them to just forcing them to go and join. So you need to take time and study that particular child. So the reason why I'm doing this video is because I get so many calls or so many messages that we that are not considering switching to this field, we don't want to be an RBT, but we just want to be informed. So this video is for you, so stay tuned to the end. You're going to learn a lot. So as I was saying, they stay in a confined area or an environment whereby it suits them the most. So you could go to mall, and then you could see some, you could find out that you are opportune to see a child, just, or maybe in the park, just isolating him or herself in that confined area. So don't force the child to go and play with other children. You have to take time and study that child very well, and then don't go too close, because it can be very aversive in such a manner. So you just have to take time and then monitor the child and stay close to the child. Normally the children are not left unattended to, so there are so many things that needs to be done for the child to be able to integrate him or herself with other kids. Another thing you want to look out for, or you want to know more about autism spectrum disorder, children that are faced with these challenges, they cannot communicate, or they cannot express themselves verbally. So what do I mean by they cannot express themselves verbally? Expression of self verbally in the sense that when they want to communicate their needs, they are limited with the words to use. So for instance, if they are in need of something, or they are passing through something emotionally, they communicate through crying. Some of them are non-verbal, and some of them through rigorous therapy or interventions, they get the expression as time goes. But for the early stage, they tend not to communicate or interact with any form of verbal cues. So you might want to understand the different aspects or the different ways they could communicate. So some would require sign language, some will require gestures, and some will require maybe PECS, which is picture exchange communication system. So whichever one that the child is comfortable with, the bone of contention is to make sure that the child communicates. So they lack this ability to communicate, and thereby they tend to get frustrated because they cannot verbally express their needs or wants. So you might want to look out for these signs. In order not for you to frustrate them the more, you just have to take note of how well they could communicate with you. You don't force them to start saying, "Oh, come on, you cannot say something, or you cannot talk, or you come on, don't be naughty, or don't be silly. Talk to me. You cannot force words out from them. Remember, they don't choose, or they did not choose this to happen to them, or they did not their parents didn't choose that to happen to them. It's just a developmental disorder that affects part of their brain, and that is why it is the way it is. So you might want to look at the signs that some of them might have difficulty communicating verbally. So you just want to know that these are the ways I can communicate with an ASD child, through signs, through PECS, or through written notes if they can read, or through any means you feel that yes, the child can be able to understand me. Another sign that is faced by an ASD child, which is autism spectrum disorder, is when they are growing up, you see, you want to look at the fact that they don't have eye contact. So the early stage of symptoms you want to look out for is if they don't maintain eye contact. I see this with so many adults, and then I'm like, are they on the spectrum? So what do I mean by maintaining eye contact? As adults, when you're conversing or when you're engaging in a conversation with someone and the person is not making an eye contact with you, it's not a good communication, because I cannot be communicating with you and then I'm looking. It shows that, oh, maybe you're not confident about what you're saying, or you're not even sure of what you're saying. So this also goes to adults, but let me go to the ASD part for the children. So when a child is developing, these are the things we should look out for. Disclaimer: I am not a health professional, but I think I have little understanding of what I am saying based on the fact that I have been in this field. So I'm not a health professional, I'm not a doctor or something. So just a little of what I have experienced, that is what I'm sharing. So please stay tuned with me, and then we can do this video and learn in one or two ways. So maintaining eye contact with a typical child developing. If a child is crying for something, and then normally a mother that has given birth to a child would want her child to maintain verbal cues like cooing, babbling, and all of that, those baby sounds. So when the mother is playing, or the mother is trying to feed the baby, the mother tends to look at the child as he or she feeds. So the child would look back. The child has to look back, or even if the child does not look back, but there will be a kind of signal that I am following your eye raise. So you know what I mean. So your eye raise, I'm following, and then I know I can smile, I can laugh to tickles or gigglings, I can giggle, just to make sure that we are engaging in conversation. So whenever a child is engaged with the mother, these are the signs that the baby gives back to the mother. It's just like a back and forth interaction between the baby and the mother. So there is laugh, there are gigglings, there are crying, there are lots of sounds that are developed in that particular time with the mother. So there is a back and forth interaction within the baby and the mother. So let me now come back to adults. So as I was saying, we adults, we also suffer this. I am guilty, and then I think I have overcome that. And that doesn't mean I am autistic. No, it's just a challenge that I try to build up myself. So sometimes we tend not to look into the eye of the person we are conversing with, which is not a good sign. If you're conversing with someone, you have to maintain good eye contact to show that you are following. It doesn't matter even if you are not looking at the person, but you are listening. But it gives you that sense of confidence that, yes, I know we are into conversations together. I agree to what you're saying. I disagree to what you're saying. But it shows that you are in that conversation. You are in that conversation, and you are willing to give your input. So maintaining eye contact would be a sign that this child might be on the spectrum. Not all children that don't maintain eye contact, not all are on the spectrum, but studies have shown that at the early stage, this might be a call for concern. Another thing is they don't respond to their name. So when we were growing up, we know we acted in so many ways or different ways when our parents calls us, and we tend to just turn a deaf ear and say, oh, I don't even want to listen to her. I know what she's calling me for. Maybe she's calling me for something I don't even have an idea. I'm not talking about that aspect. When a typical child is growing, when you call, let's say for instance, the child is up to 18 months, or let's say 6 months, and then you make a sound, and then the child turns. So there is a form of, okay, the hearings are well maintained and all that. But when a child has difficulty responding to his or her name, and when it's typically developing, and this calls for concern, why is my child not responding to his or her name at this particular time? Or maybe you call the child Joy, and he's just there doing his own thing, enjoying life in his own little world. So you could want to look at that. There is a sign that this child is not responding to his name. When I call even several times, the child is not listening, or it's not that the child heads and turn and say, oh, I heard something that sounds like my name, but the child does not even fidget or does not even make any move. So that would call for a concern. Another challenge that these children might face is when you see a child playing with one particular toy for a longer period of time. You might want to check that out. So what do I mean by playing repetitively with a particular toy? So if I have a ball and then I'm attached to this ball, I am attached to the ball because the ball gives me a kind of sensation. So I want to play more with that ball. Maybe it's a squishy ball or it's just like an ordinary ball. So I have that ball within me, within my reach. I don't let go. Even if it's taken from me, I will find every means to get it back because that ball gives me a comfort. So if you find a child, having a particular object to him or herself for a longer period of time, not letting go, or you want to exchange the ball for something else and there is a meltdown or there is a problem behavior, then you want to, like, what is happening? You can't let go of this ball. I need to give you something else to play with, not that you're attached to this ball for a period of time and then you're not letting go. Also, you find children on the spectrum lining up things. So they line up objects and then they fixate their eyes on the object. They fixate their eyes on the object not because they're trying to look at the direction, but because there is a sensation that they tend to enjoy. So they line up those objects and then just move it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. They can do this for hours. They can go on and on and on without being bored of doing that particular stereotypic behavior. So when you see such children, don't just intervene. You cannot be playing with this all the time. You just need time to study them and patience. My previous video, I've said it times without number that you have to be very extraordinary patient. If you are an impatient person, when you go close to an ASD child or an autistic child, please just, if you cannot maintain patience, just move away from that environment. I'm an advocate for these children, and I must say that it requires patience to be with them. If you are not patient enough, then don't even go close to them, because it's going to affect you psychologically and it's going to affect the child psychologically if you're not able to manage that child. So when they line up objects, they tend to do that ritual behavior for a longer period of time. So they could also do repetitive behavior in terms of flapping their hands. So they keep, it's not that they want to keep flapping their hands. No child will want to be, flapping or rocking or doing some behaviors that are not socially mediated or socially acceptable. So it's just that is what their system requires at that particular time to calm themselves down. So you want to know that, yes, sometimes they tend to be, they want to express their emotions and they want to regulate themselves. So regulating themselves, in order not to make this video long, regulating themselves in the sense that when they flap, they tend to get a kind of sensory stimulus in order to calm their nerves. And then when they rock, there is a sensation, there is a part of the brain that calls for that sensation at that particular time. And when you see them rocking, you don't say, don't spoil that chair for me. They are not the one doing it. Or don't do your hand this way, put your hands down. No, it's just a matter of time. And if you're trained very well, you will know how to manage it. So when they flap, which I'm going to be discussing later, when they flap, you don't quickly rush in and then intervene. You give it a period of time and then you analyze that behavior. What is the function of that behavior? I mean, every behavior has a function. It's not that it doesn't have a function. It has a function. So you have to analyze what function is the flapping indicating, or what function is the rocking indicating. So for every behavior, there is always a function. So stay tuned. I still have some other things to share along. But before I go, please, if you have not subscribed, kindly do so by subscribing. I love the amount or the numbers of views I'm getting, but the subscribers still need to be improved. I trust you. I believe in you. Please subscribe to my channel.
I hear a sound. There is a shaking. The mighty power of the serving God is moving. Every dry bone is rising up again. Every dry bone is rising up again. I hear a sound, the rain of abundance. There is a shifting in the atmosphere. Every dry bone is rising up again. Every dry bone is rising up again. I hear a sound, yes. There is a shaking. The mighty power of the sovereign God is moving. Every dry bone is rising up again. Every dry bone is rising up again. I hear a sound, yes. The rain of abundance. There is a shifting in the atmosphere. Every dry bone is rising up again. In the name of Jesus, yeah.